In Turkey, the presidential post is supposed to be a ceremonial one only. That's what the constitution of that nation dictates. But a man who some say at times acts like a dictator is accused of steamrolling right over it, putting himself in an authoritarian role. We are talking about the president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Among those he steamrolls over and even imprisons are journalists. In fact, he's recently even taken aim at the New York Times. Take a look.
Last summer, Turkey engaged in the country's first direct presidential election. It was the country's prime minister of the Conservative Justice and Development Party, known by its Turkish initials AKP, Prime Minister Erdogan, who won the seat of presidency. The presidency had meant to be a largely ceremonial post, yet impartial. But as the world learned, that is not the case. The major parties have already criticized the partiality of the president and appealed to the Supreme Election Board, the YSK, complaining about Erdogan's political rallies. However, no results came of these efforts. Since taking office, news media who spoke against him have been under attack, with raids on media outlets and the imprisonment of journalists, editors, and network executives. In a recent attack to the main opposition newspaper, Cumhuriyet, Erdogan said the editor-in-chief will pay a heavy price. In fact, when the New York Times brought light of the situation to the world, Erdogan told the U.S. paper, quote, "By publishing this editorial, you are overstepping the limits of freedom. Know your place," unquote. There is ample concern of Erdogan's pattern of snuffing out the secular system in favor of putting a government of religion in place. The BBC reports Mr. Erdogan wants to change Turkey's constitution, diminish the role of the parliamentary system, and introduce an executive presidency instead. This is why Sunday's election holds so much in the balance. While Erdogan's party, the AKP, is expected to hold tight, for those who root for a Turkish democracy, hopes lie with the pro-Kurdish Party, the HDP. Interestingly, the fate of Turkey's democracy could very well depend on the pro-Kurdish Party, a group not in the best standing with the U.S., NATO, and the EU.
We're back live on set here at Fresh Outlook. I am joined by the Fresh Outlook think tank. Joining us live via Skype is Ilhan Tanir, a journalist. Also joining us here in the studio is Dr. Bart Rossi, a political psychologist, Dr. Jackie Guzda, a media professor at Western Connecticut State University, and Mustafa Tablani, a journalist and producer with whom I've worked here at Ebru News as well. Mustafa, tell me about the change in Erdogan over the last couple of years. He went from a man who was on the cusp of having his country join the European Union to a man who is looking more and more like a dictator every day.
Well, the whole region changed a lot, actually. When Erdogan was in power, the road to the European Union was open and the region was very much stable. And there was lots of commercial opportunities and there were lots of bribery and corruption going on. But it's very typical in a third world country. Everybody knew it. And little by little, when this corruption exposed, he could have sacked those ministers who were involved in this corruption, but he just wanted to show power. He didn't want to look weak. So he just annulled the constitution, basically made up some courts and gave some special status to special courts that carries on duties, and then made some
trumped up charges, basically. Was this basically the Ergenekon scandal where people were accused of conspiring to overthrow the government?
Well, it has some truth in it, because military had a story of overthrowing government, and they have been meddling with Turkish politics for a very long time. When the Ergenekon got exposed, people said that, well, army had it's coming. So,
but just like with the terror fight here in the United States, once you enact special laws that give somebody broad powers, you can use them to smite your enemies.
And that's the downhill, and the whole region gets very, very, very bad. Everything goes bad, and Syria, in Iran, nuclear deals, and Russia invading Ukraine.
And we're going to talk about an arms deal in just a second, but let's turn now to Ilhan Tanir, who is joining us via Skype. Ilhan, what is the headline here when we talk about Erdogan cracking down on the freedom of the press? I know here at Ebru we have felt it. Our sister network STV has actually had executives jailed and threatened. It seems to be a way of muzzling a free press, correct? Okay, he's having a little trouble hearing us. I'm going to go turn into the studio now. Dr. Bart Rossi, when you hear about the changes and witness the changes in Erdogan, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. It seems like this man wants absolute power.
Well, that seems like the pathway he's going down. I mean, he's going down, as you said, a dictatorship. This is what it looks like to me. But you know, Winston Churchill was talking about, for many years, lasting success compared to initial success. And this guy seemed to have some initial success where he presented himself as somebody perhaps for the people. And now I think he's gone down the other way, where he's looking at consolidating power so he could be a kingmaker or a dictator. And you don't really get lasting success by going down that road. There's a lot of recent examples of people who have failed once they try to go down that way and just consolidate power and be a dictator.
Jackie, talk to me a little bit about the importance of having a free press in a democracy.
Well, the free press, their job is to shine a light against power. And this is what they're doing in Turkey, as well as here, as well as every other democratic country in the world. So when the press is doing that over there, here's what I'd like to jump off on Dr. Bart's point, is that for a little bit of time, he's been repressing, as we saw in the tape, repressing the voices of the press. He's been jailing journalists, he's shut down Twitter, he's shut down YouTube. You know, he thinks he can do this, but it's too late. That in my opinion, what Erdogan doesn't get is that when you try to repress the power of the press, it's going to come through in cracks. Information is going to get out, and this regime that you're trying to establish is going to fall.
Mustafa, one of the issues that have come out recently is this issue you were telling me before about smuggling guns, essentially,
Yes.
or selling arms to Syria.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Right now, a journalist is charged with high treason and international espionage because he published photos of a truck carrying weapons to Syria, and these are like rockets, and these are not like small arms, these are like army grade weapons. And it's pretty much a covert operation gone bad. Central Intelligence Agency of Turkey was doing this operation, but they didn't inform army, they didn't inform police, they didn't inform border patrol. They were using commercial trucks to carry those weapons. And at some point someone stopped and got suspicious and called the army. These are army grade weapons, what are you doing? You're a civilian truck driver. And then police came, everybody came, and the intelligence officer are saying, well, this is a covered operation, but it was too late at that point. But then the special court put a gag order. So nobody could talk about it. And it was silent for a month or so until this journalist found those photos and published them. Now he's charged with international espionage and high treason.
Okay, let's turn to Ilhan, who is joining us via Skype in Istanbul. To make that kind of bold move, to sell weapons to Syria, this is something that is supposed to involve parliament, not a ceremonial president, correct?
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about this wide-ranging power grab that's taking place on the part of President Erdogan.
President Erdogan is such a story that just a couple of years ago, he was seen as someone who finally showed the world that the Islam and the democracy could live together, and they just unfortunately, since the Gezi protest for the last 2 years, the way he has been governing disappointed many within Turkey and outside of Turkey. And in the case of Syria, Erdogan and his team think that Syria is the case. Turkey can show that it can shape the region, but it did not work out the way Erdogan visioned 2011, 2012, and 2013. And then for the last 2 years, this time the Ankara, Mr. Erdogan, basically wanted to support every kind of rebels, including extremists, including the groups tied to Al-Qaeda in Syria, just to topple the Assad his sworn enemy. And to do that, he as you mentioned, he power grabbed. one point I wanted to make is that all this weapon smuggling is done through Turkish intelligence, and the Turkish army has been staying away from this kind of operations, has been staying clear from any kind of support and to Syria, so that Mr. Erdogan turns his very close aide, Hakan Fidan, to do this kind of support. And finally, just a couple days ago, it came out through Cumhuriyet newspaper that indeed, as many know and many have been argued, that Turkey, Erdogan's leadership has been giving a weapon and other kind of support to the extreme elements in northern Syria.
Okay, let's turn now to the studio and Dr. Bart. I know he's not a patient of yours, but he probably should be. But from your armchair diagnosis from afar, what would you say is wrong with Erdogan?
I think he's very egocentric, perhaps even more so than many politicians that we know. He's interested in a power play, and really he personifies that kind of a person who wants to be a kingmaker, you know. And to that point, he built a palace for himself, a new palace with 1,150 rooms. I'm just wondering, why didn't he stop after 1,000? Well, what are the other 150 rooms for, you know?
Let Mustafa take up on that.
He said that there were cockroaches in the prime minister's office. That's why he built the palace.
But can you imagine someone saying that, though? I mean, and he's somewhat serious. And when he says these things, we're laughing because we think it's a joke. But the people in Turkey probably relate to this and say, what's wrong with him? I mean, there's like a personality issue.
But Jackie, he's also playing on people's religious beliefs as well. It seems like he's trying to divide and conquer. They're a secular nation and a religious nation.
Well, our guest said something very important, that when Erdogan took power, he took power in a country that's 98% Muslim, but was also a democracy. And Turkey was going to show the world that those two forces could coexist in one place. And since then, he's been changing his spots, and he's been more and more, as Dr. Bart says, as a dictator. It's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen in tomorrow's elections.
And Mustafa, that's been heartbreaking for us who saw Turkey as a bridge between the East and the West. It literally is. We thought it figuratively was as well.
Yeah. But maybe the model was not the government, but model was the people. And right now, Turkish people are opposing this. They are opposing those authoritarian trends. They are voicing freedom, and even the religious side, secular side, everybody's united, liberals united against this kind of trend, and maybe that can be a show in a non-violent path to establish democracy from the people. And in America, it wasn't easy either. So
no, there's always struggles in every nation, but this is almost tantamount if President Barack Obama named himself Secretary of State and then tried to elevate the level of Secretary of State to President. We're going to have a whole lot more on Fresh Outlook when we come back. A look at a crucial vote in Turkey that takes place in less than 24 hours, and one which could result in the president changing the Constitution with the help of Parliament. More on that after this.